and welcome to a new edition of Gerety Talks. Today we're having a talk with three creative leaders that come from the UAE. Dida Atassi, Managing Director, Accenture Song; Lucy Harvey, Chief Growth Officer, Middle East, Turkey, India, and Africa at Hill & Knowlton; and Natalie Shardan, Managing Partner, Service Plan Group, Middle East. Welcome, and thanks for joining us today. So shall we start by introducing yourselves and tell us a little bit more about your roles and company? Dida, would you like to start?
Sure. So my name is Dida Atassi, and I'm a managing director at Accenture Song here in the Middle East. More specifically, I'm the creative lead for one of our practices within Song called Design and Digital Products. So I look after all of our creatives, ranging from service design to user experience design and UI design and more. I've been here in the Middle East for about 10 years now, and I'm originally from Washington, D.C. in the United States. Thanks for having me.
Lucy, would you like to go next?
Happy to. Thank you so much for inviting us all here. I'm Lucy Harvey. I'm Chief Growth Officer at Hill & Knowlton here in the UAE, working across the Middle East, Turkey, India, and Africa. We are more of a communications company with a very, very broad mix of what we do. So as one part of my role as Chief Growth Officer, I'm lucky enough to run our studio, our creatives, our team of designers, and then working really closely with what we call our innovation and creative hub regionally and across the world. We have all those digital brains, our strategists, and our data analytics, and are really looking at how we bring AI in as well. So lucky to work as part of that, and excited to hear more from Natalie and Dida as well.
Natalie, your turn.
Yes, thank you again for having me. So I'm Natalie Shardan. I'm the managing partner of Service Plan Middle East. Service Plan is a lead independent creative agency. We're a global network, obviously, and I run the operation here of the Middle East out of the Dubai office. So my role specifically has been for the past 6 years to grow the agency, grow in terms of revenue and size, and grow in terms of creative reputation. We've managed successfully to do that. We've been awarded Independent Agency of the Year a few times at Dubai Links already. We help brands globally to create that emotional connection and the region relevancy here in our region. So we work on a couple of global brands. And on the other hand, we're also proud to work on a few local brands that are making it global. So we're the global creative agency for a client, for example, like the Department of Culture and Tourism, helping them promote the city of Abu Dhabi globally. So it's a nice mix of both. So yeah, I'm happy to be here and to be part of this panel. So thank you very much for inviting me.
So let's dive directly into the complicated questions. What are today the biggest challenges you face in your roles, and more generally, the challenges the advertising industry faces? Who has the courage to start?
Well, since I've started last, I can, I can go first now. Well, I personally think, and obviously the conversation that I've been having with my peers leading other creative agencies, it's surprising. But although everyone talks about AI and the importance of AI, and a lot of people, especially in our industry, fear their jobs in AI, I still feel acquiring good talent and retaining them is one of the key challenges that we face in our industry. And I would say specifically after COVID and after the shifts that COVID has brought to the way we work in general, our industry is demanding, has always been demanding, will always be demanding, but the needs and the way that people look at jobs and are a bit slightly different, right? That's why you see a lot of talents that want or look for remote working conditions, or others that want more flexibility of working from home versus the office. Others who want to spend the summer working abroad for a couple of months remotely. So I just feel that the way we look at nurturing or looking for talents and nurturing talents and retaining them has to somehow shift and change, because the circumstances around those talents and what they're looking for in their work environment has completely shifted and changed right after COVID. I don't think this is only for advertising. It's in general, but I would say for our industry, it's a bit more specific because the demands of the job and the client's demands haven't really changed much. Yet the dynamics of how people look at employers and the perfect environment for them to work has kind of changed in that sense. There are other obviously specific challenges that are related to the industry, but I'll leave it to my other two colleagues to add in their bits.
I'll just add off the back of that, actually, because I completely agree. Like, talent is a huge problem across our entire industry. But I think also when you've got talent that want to be working remotely, working different schedules, doing part-time, full-time, trying to balance all those types of things, you know, increasingly wanting to travel and work. At the same time, like, all our clients want work faster, quicker, better. So you're fighting against that, and it's that constant balance between knowing that you can work outside of the office, yes, but we all see those magic, those, you know, pieces of magic that happen when you do have the collaboration. And when you're trying to go incredibly fast, you need people to be collaborating at pace, and often that happens when we're in the same room. And I know that for us as an agency, creating that balance, deciding when to go for speed, when to go for efficiency, when to put the brakes on with a client and say, no, we need more time. You can have good really quick, but it's going to take you a little bit longer to get to great. But these are, in the region, I think it's true around the world, these are clients who are possibly be given 5-day deadlines by their senior leadership. So that, I think, is a balance that we have. And I think you layer on top of that talent with increasingly different sorts of demands and requirements, and having to protect that talent and protect great work. I think that's a bit of a magic formula. I'm definitely not sure I've cracked that yet, but that to me is something to try and get right.
Just building off the back of what was just said. So one of the things that we're facing is, how do we give creatives opportunities for career growth within the practice? So we, for example, you know, have some people that are extremely specialized in what they do in their area of expertise, and that's amazing. But it's also about, how do we upskill for the new areas of growth and our new strategic areas at the same time, and move fast enough to be able to go with our clients and show that we're ahead of the curve. At the end of the day, Accenture is a tech-powered company. So really our clients look to us to say, guys, what's the latest and the greatest? What innovation are you bringing to this? We have a long-standing client we've been with for many years, and they're constantly asking us, what's new? How are you going to reinvent yourselves? And how are you going to bring that to the table? So we have a twofold challenge. One is providing that kind of progression and growth and the pathways for that. And two is upskilling at speed and at the pace that we need to, in order to keep up with what I think the pace of the world changing faster than we can kind of get our hands around, especially these days. So those two things are really important, and carving out the time to really understand, you know, where do we want to be and how are we going to get there in terms of skills is really, really important. So these are the things that are at least on my mind and the mind of the practice these days.
And do you believe things are even going faster than before COVID? It's weird to think that the world kind of stopped for a moment, and now everything is going even faster than before.
Look, I think the pace of change was always there. I think it's just different areas now. I think the pace was there. I mean, pre-COVID, I remember, you know, moving really fast in certain areas related to service design, and that was kind of the buzzy word, and we were going through that. So I think it's still moving fast. I think it's just the areas that we're moving in. We're looking more towards automation, technology, these types of things is where we are now. And I think the pace will always be there. And I think it's just the areas of focus that'll continue to change.
Yeah, like from our side, we've noticed that during COVID was probably the busiest year, but as Dira said, it was in a complete different direction. So all the projects that we've been discussing with our clients that are related to digital transformation specifically, that were kind of taking the back seat, all of a sudden the green light was given on all of them. And we had to really work to deploy that, obviously, because of the circumstances of COVID. So I would say it's always been fast, but it picked up right after COVID, in my opinion, for sure.
What COVID did, I think, is brought to light a lot of things that we weren't talking about before. So now really what impactful projects are the ones that really look at, the sustainability or the status of the earth today, or looking inwards at this work-life balance and how do we maximize our efficiency at work so that we can have more time outside of work. I think those are new things that were brought to light in the post-COVID era. That we're really looking towards. Things that really make a change in human behavior, human life, are really the ones that are standing out at the moment.
I think that's, sorry, just to add a point on that. So you then, again, you've got this weird conflict. So people like ourselves who are, running large departments or running large companies, you go incredibly fast. You're trying to keep up with multiple new business pitches, multiple kind of huge existing clients that want 10 proposals in a week. So you're doing all that. And how do you then balance and make sure you've created space or safe space for people to work in depth and sometimes slowly? Like you need people to think, like Dida, to your point, how do I carve out time for one of my innovation team to genuinely spend a whole morning or whole afternoon reading and thinking? So I always find that, again, a challenge for myself. Like keep going fast, keep moving these things through fast, but create space for people to think and breathe and do proper work. Otherwise, everything we give is surface level. So I think that is a tricky thing. And that also comes back to talent and training. People don't improve unless they're given space to improve and space to think and space to read and space to experiment and fail. So again, I think that's a tricky balance all the time in an agency, to almost have a couple of speeds going at any time.
And Dida, you mentioned the new technologies. So how has your creative work changed with the development of new technologies? And I guess like AI, for example, which is the debate, is it helpful, harmful? Do you use it? What is your opinion on it?
I know I'm probably showing my age now, but for me personally, specifically, I now have a lot of colleagues, who have really like jumped on board and really kind of embraced it, which is amazing. I personally have kind of dabbled in, but have yet to really use it. But we are finding ways to enhance what we do. And I've always said, people say, are you worried about your job? That this is going to take your job. For me, it would always be a human-led kind of initiative. Like as much as these tools will help us, they might make us more efficient. They might propel us, in entirely new ways of working. But I think they will always need human involvement to be really, really meaningful, and to really kind of shape it and make something customized for our client. You'll really always still need our expertise, our empathy, our emotion, our backgrounds to bring that angle in. It cannot just be entirely replaced, by a machine. And that's how I feel. So I'm really specifically looking at ways that this can enhance what we do, but not replace what we do.
Yeah, well, for us, a lot of the creatives are really young. So AI is part of their daily life, right? They use it also on a personal level on their day-to-day life. So the integration or the adoption of AI as a technology was really quick and was done early enough, I think, in our agency. So I would say it enhanced our efficiency and productivity for sure. It helped us do things faster and better, probably. But as Dira said, it requires that human input, because AI is as good, the output of AI is as good as the prompts and the inputs, right? So even with that, you need to think of what kind of prompts you need the tool to kind of help you shape, right? So it really helped us a lot. And it helped us also in challenging certain skills. So whenever they see a visual that is generated in AI or something else that is done by AI, they kind of start between them, like, having some sort of a competition with this, technological beast. And they're like, oh, but my human skill set and whatever I've studied and whatever I've seen can do better than this. And we've started seeing outputs from illustrators, from art directors, from visualizers. We're trying to up their game because of that tool. Obviously, it's also a nice kind of competition to have with technology, I guess. But yeah, it helped us. I cannot say anything else.
And I just add that I think technology has been part of the advertising, the creative industry for 100 years, right? And every 5 years or every 10 years, there's something else that changes and evolves. 50 years ago, people were still sketching ads. and taking big boards with them, right? And then, you know, people were started to be, you know, illustrating online. And for a long time, illustrations, digital illustrations were seen as, you know, the enemy. Like, this is natural. It feels crazy fast. It feels, you know, like it's a really big thing to get our head around. But I think, as you say, we have young teams who are embracing these things day in, day out, and they just become more and more comfortable with them. So to me, that's part of the normal thing. So our challenge is just to Dida's point earlier, like, how do we make sure we're creating the opportunities to keep learning? How do we make that okay to experiment? How do we create some training space so that people can accelerate quicker? And for me, we work in a very integrated agency, but we have a lot of different skill sets. We have our PR skill set, the more marketing skill set, the more digital skill sets. I think when people see that as two separate, or that AI sits with digital, or that generative AI sits with studio, that's when things go wrong. Like, for me, everybody needs to be in a bit of a learning process around these things. How do you learn what a digital platform can do in a new way? If you mix that with creative, that's when you get something transformative and something exciting and something that the client's like, yes, no one's done that thing before where X meets X. So I think that is, again, about space. It's about training. It's about giving people opportunities to do that and possibly being a bit braver. But technology's always been around. It changes every year. It pushes us on. It's no different in that respect.
Yeah, that's true. And Lucy, well, you already mentioned a couple of things about leadership and how to encourage the people that work with you to give out the creative best, making space. And Natalie, Dida, what are your tips on leadership to make people bring out their best creative?
Well, Natalie, please.
Oh, please go ahead.
You know, it's about creating the right environment. And I think space is a really good one. And I wonder how these new technologies can help us make more space, save some time on some of the things that we don't need to spend so much time on anymore, you know, and just help us accelerate to carve out that time in that space. For us, it's about community as well. I think community is super important. So smaller communities of practice where you can go and practice your craft or talk about your craft and maybe potentially work on a project that's outside of your day-to-day project work that's going to help keep you, you know, motivated and upskilled. So I think, you know, people and community, we put a lot of focus on that. And I think when you do, you know, prioritize your people in your practice, that's when you'll start to see the best quality work. People start to succeed. And that can be a number of different ways. It can be creating these great pathways for progression, giving people opportunities outside of their project work, creating communities of practice where people can have a safe space to go and discuss their craft. There are a number of different ways that we do it, but I think those are all, you know, high focus in terms of building a practice where people are performing at their best. And I think leaders need to kind of create those conditions and pave the way for that.
Yeah, adding to that, I think the key for me answer to this is culture, because like I've been in this industry for almost 20 years now, different agencies, and I know what makes or breaks an agency is the culture that is led by the people working at the agency, and how as leaders we shape a specific culture that embraces people with their different skill sets and different backgrounds and different knowledge and passions, right? And it's very important for us, and at least what we do I believe at Service Plan is encourage that culture of collaboration. So although there are different functions and different departments and different responsibilities that are key for specific functions and job descriptions and roles, that doesn't mean that this person cannot be doing something else. So a recent successful incident for us, at least, is a case that won a lot of awards, got everyone talking for a BMW, and it came from a business director. And everyone jumped behind it and everyone made it happen. Everyone collaborated to craft it to its best possible way. And after that happened, I've started having people from different departments, one of them finance, proposing a proactive idea for a client, right? So this is fostering that kind of collaborative culture and giving people the safe space to do beyond whatever job description that you've hired them for is very important to keep everyone, you know, excited and happy to come to work and do something different. So I think this is a very important thing. The other thing is clarity. setting expectations, and being very clear in giving feedback, and being very clear in following up on career paths, and showing people what their bigger role is within the overall culture and the industry, the agency, is also very important. And as leaders, I think this is one of the key roles that we need to play to ensure that we have that, we drive that healthy culture in our agencies.
And Dida, you have spent nearly 20 years developing compelling world-class experiences for global and local brands. And your bio says you're an advocate of the user and understanding who they are and what they need is essential. Tell us a little bit more about how you get to this understanding.
Look, a lot of times we find, outputs or projects that are really, you feel like they're driven by a business need or a business requirement or something that the business wants to achieve. And you probably feel that in every interaction that we have day to day. You get the feeling that someone's trying to sell you something, they want you to click here on an advertisement or whatever. What I mean by user needs is like when you craft something that is a mix of the business needs, but also prioritizes the user needs, that's when you find a really great experience. That's when you feel valued as a user. That's when you feel like it's simple and it's easy and it's not something that's trying to, make your life more complicated. An interesting example of this is probably in government. So taking really mundane tasks that people don't want to do, but you have to do, and making them simple and easy and delightful based on thousands of hours of user interviews and research, trying to find out what are the pain points with the existing process. How would you apply for a birth certificate for your child in the easiest possible way? Once you've done that research and you understand, the problem, only then can you really put out something that is going to resonate with people, whether it's a campaign or a product or anything, and make it really, truly successful. So that's the kind of human first element that we try to take. We understand the requirements of the business, but we're also going to take a very human lens and go through the process of understanding human needs before we put our pen to paper and start designing something.
If you manage to make those kind of errands delightful, I applaud you.
We have some examples.
I like that word.
Yeah.
And Lucy, from your role, you bring more PR into the mix, and your creatives need to learn to work in earned first campaign, as well as day-to-day and campaignable creative content for social, advertising, and brands. How do you manage to bring out that earned first PR-led approach in a team of creatives, working much more in social and short-form film content across B2B, B2G, and B2C? How do you build and support a creative team working at faster and faster speeds, that we already said, alongside PR professionals and often from very diverse and creative backgrounds?
Yeah, and I think at our agency, and I think this happens at more and more agencies now, you're mixing different requirements. I mean, I know their Accenture and service plan, it's not a straightforward ask. It's not just deliver this, deliver that. It's the same in our agency. Everybody wants to solve a problem of some description. And then you're looking around, say, okay, what are the tools that we have available? Where can we go with it? I think what we've been doing at Hill & Knowlton is that we bring in different sorts of creatives and different sorts of brains and different sorts of digital brains. The thing about that is they come from many, many different sorts of cultures. And to Natalie's point, building a culture that puts earned first to the middle takes actually quite a lot of effort. And it has to be quite clear. We talk about it a lot. We are by our nature a kind of PR earned first agency. So finding stories that are talkable, stories that excite people, stories that are really based in insights. So what we really do there is try and help people understand that it's never a one-man band. It's never that moment where one magical creative has a magical creative idea. We celebrate the whole story at the beginning, the insights, the thousands of hours of research, whatever that is, the person who made the effort to bring that moment together of distilling it all into a creative brief. And then those roundtable discussions. We did an example of a campaign just recently for Alula, where we did a huge heritage campaign for them, where we literally got an artist to kind of literally put hands around the Hegra archaeological sites. And that came from like one sentence, right? Where one of our lead creatives had this moment of going, oh my God, he sketched it on a piece of paper. But the hard work that went into that beforehand, the hard work after that piece of paper was scribbled down to turn that into an all singing, all dancing content and publishing campaign across 20 different channels. That is, I think, the learning that a lot of our creative teams have, of going, wow, it's bigger than this. And often we are working at incredibly fast speeds. So you can't deliver one piece, hand it to the next person, deliver the next piece, hand it to the next person. Everything has to be in those collaborative, concurrent teams. And that, I think, is a structure that I think most agencies now have to embrace. There is no longer the time to hand things down the line. You have to work together, take the best learnings, take the best knowledge and pull that in. And to me, that's when you get the magical insights from your finance team, or the sudden point of view from somebody different about how could we twist this? You know, a football insight from a fan of a particular football club that suddenly changes a dynamic. And those are some of the things that I work really hard with our studio and our innovation and creative hub to pull together as well.
And Natalie, your bio says you did your degree in fine arts, but soon realized you preferred being a suit. And you also moved to Italy to follow your passion for fashion and study before going back to advertising. What is different in these three different worlds, and what did you learn that you use now in your work?
Well, what's different is age across those three different life phases that you've just mentioned. So no, but on a serious note, so I've always, I knew that I wanted to be in the advertising industry. I've tried the creation part of it, and I've discovered that I'm better in selling the work and making it as turning into a business stream more than actually creating it. But it's really helped me, that background, to understand the process, to respect the time that is needed to come up with and craft really ideas that are based on storytelling, because they're very important. Adding to what Lucy just said, that bringing things to life and the execution part of it is a super interesting part, and it could happen naturally when you have a story that is cemented and crafted in a way that makes sense and tells you something that is interesting to hear as a consumer. So it's really helped me in that sense. The relationship that I've always had with my creative counterparts has always been strong and very collaborative, because nowadays also it is not client servicing doing this, strategy doing that, creative doing this. It doesn't work this way, especially, as we have mentioned a couple of times, when you have timelines that are really tight and short. A person needs to wear more than one hat at the same time, and they need to collaboratively work with all the disciplines and different backgrounds and different interests and different, different overall interests for you to come up with something that is a bit interesting and has some sort of an edge. So that kind of background helped me. And then that break that I've taken to do my master's for fashion, it was just for personal reasons. And it grew me on a personal level a little bit more, gave me more exposure. And it helped the overall mix, if you'd like. So yeah, in a nutshell, some milestones happened intentionally, and others were some sort of a good karma and good accident, like my fashion degree.
And what would be your advice to someone who wants to come to the UAE to develop their advertising career?
Well, I guess the very first thing is to have an open mind, because the UAE, we were talking a bit before we started this conversation, Dubai as a city and the UAE are a bit different and unique in nature, right? The fact that it's very diverse, the fact there's so many cultures coming together to live under one roof is interesting, and it's very different. So whomever is moving to the UAE and is moving to work specifically in advertising, they have to be agile and flexible. And they kind of have to understand that things somehow run differently, just because people come from very different backgrounds and it's a melting pot. So that open-mindedness, if you'd like, and agility is very important. Obviously, it's always about doing the research, knowing the big players, who are they, what do they do, the best work that comes out from the region, what are the key focuses, if you'd like, and the ambition that the country has, because it very much affects a lot of things, right? Especially when you look at local brands who are making it global, like an Emirates or Dubai as a brand, for example. It comes from the overall vision of the country. So it's important for that person kind of understand the drivers behind what's happening in the city or in the country. And also obviously networking, putting out there in events that are advertising related or other events that are around marketing, just putting yourself out there and getting to know the right people that can give you the right kind of advice and insights, I think is very important also in general, but in the UAE and Dubai in specific, I think.
Dida, Lucy, you want to add something?
I completely agree with everything that's been said. I think advertising has changed over time. So I would be, if I was coming, especially here to the region, be open at looking at different types of agencies, because I think traditional advertising agencies, and correct me if I'm wrong, you might know more, because I've always kind of worked for more kind of tech agencies rather than traditional advertising agencies, but I think it looks different. I think now advertising is embedded in a number of different ways in different types of agencies. So for example, you could be, into advertising, but you might take on be in a marketing function in an agency, for example, and that would have kind of the same type of work. But you should be open to the fact that now that word advertising, I think, has branched out in a number of different ways, and it's taken a lot of different forms. So your career could look quite different from what you picture as traditional advertising today. So that would be my piece of advice.
I think that's such a good point, as evidenced by the three of us, right? We work for very different sorts of agencies, doing different things, but at their core, there's some of that, that real similarity of your problem solving with creative solutions. It's just that we all branch out in slightly different ways at different times. And I think any young creative or someone aspiring to be in the industry could work for any of these agencies and do something really exciting and do something amazing. I think my only other thing I'd add, and I think it's probably to Natalie's point as well, is it's kind of learn the region. Like, you've got to be humble enough to realize whoever you are, you're probably in the minority in the Middle East, because there's so many nationalities, so many different ages, so many different places people are coming from. You walk down the street and you just see so many different sorts of people. It's not the same if you're working in London. So I think here that humbleness is actually really important. So you force yourself to read a newspaper that's designed for a different nationality. Do a Google Translate of a Filipino website to see what they're talking about. Walk the streets. And I think and not just the creatives, across our whole business, when you see people are just so interested to go and learn what different cultures do or different nationalities do in Abu Dhabi or Sharjah or Riyadh or Jeddah, going and finding that, I think that creates really rich work. And that, I think, sets you up for massive success. And you see the people that do that, you see the people that love it. And I think that's when the industry also gets really exciting.
Well, I definitely need to go. I've never been to the UAE. So thank you so much for your time and your insights and your ideas, and the best of luck with all the projects that you carry on for this year.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.